Converted man here. What was that about? Alright, I found a video to talk about called Skeptic Course. What is the evidence for the existence of God? My brain already hurts. This is part one. Why part one? Because there's no way I'm going to be able to do, well, I could do all of it, but given the fact that whenever I look at small videos, my video tends to be really long. This one's an hour long. So, yeah. I love how religions love to turn everything around. We have evidence for God. No, you don't. You have arguments for God, and the arguments were bad, by the way, but that you don't have evidence. Okay, we are going to teach you how to be a skeptic. No, you're not. You're going to do the opposite. Faith is the opposite of skepticism. But, you know, let's step back. Maybe they have actual evidence and actual archaeology and citations, and maybe they don't have any of that, do they? They have a booklet. Yeah. Oh, that's not anything, is it? Well, maybe they offer something in the video that is such a good argument that I'm compelled to learn more. Anyways, let's just listen to it, and here we go.
And whether you are maybe you're a seeker, maybe you are looking to grow in your faith, and you know what? Maybe you are a skeptic. I just wanted to say a big welcome to you. And did you know that, like, being a skeptic isn't a bad thing? So I just want to put that myth to bed right now. Being a skeptic is okay. It's okay to have a healthy amount of skepticism in your life, because if you didn't have a healthy amount of skepticism in your life, like you'd be dead. So it's okay to have a healthy amount of skepticism. And so we just wanted to say, if you are skeptical of faith or anything, we just wanted to say, like, we're just so glad that you're here. If you're a skeptic, that just simply means you haven't had enough evidence presented to you for you to be able to put your trust in something yet. And so we hope that throughout the Skeptic Course, we're able to give you enough evidence to for you to be able to make a rational decision, because we really believe that rational people can believe in God. Rational people can believe in the evidence for creation. So here we go. We're gonna get right.
You were doing so well. You know. Okay. So here's the thing. When you say creation, you're already assuming that there is a creation, so that's a problem already. But rational, okay? Given that we are in a society that has accepted religion as a norm, it's not unusual for people to be religious. It's not unusual for people to believe in God. It's not unusual for people to profess their faith in God. Given that, then yeah, it's rational in that sense. There's one building, one house in my area, well, not in this area, but relatively close by, that's pink and stands out, and it's a psychic, fortune teller house business thing. And I wonder how much business they could get, but I guess they have enough that they can keep open. And that's the unusual end of this spectrum. Most people don't believe in psychics. Most people don't believe in palm reading or tarot cards or any of that. And you shouldn't, because there's zero evidence for any of it. It's all just tricks. It's all just a con. It's cold readings. It's nothing that somebody couldn't, learn how to do and just do. It's not a real power. They can't see the future. They don't know what's going to happen. If they did, why would they bother running a business like that? They could just play the stock market. So that's the unusual belief. That's the one out of however many thousands of people believe that, the very small percentage. But yet, if you move along, you'll see churches, and you'll see churches here and there, and and so that's the typical belief, is that there's plenty of people that believe, so much so that there's plenty of money to go around to support plenty of churches operating. That's the norm of the society. So within that, it's rational to accept what has been presented as normal. But there's a different sort of rational thinking that says, well, just because everybody else thinks this is true, or it seems like everybody's thinking that this is true, maybe, just maybe, I need to question it anyways. And that's a sort of different angle of rational thinking that I wonder if that will be explored or not. But at any rate,
right into it. If you want to follow along with us on a fill in the blanks or an outline, you can go to broadwaychurch.com/skeptic, and you can download, there you go, you can download the Skeptic booklet. So you just click on the link at the very bottom that says download Skeptic booklet, and boom, you can follow along with us, fill in the blanks, and write down your questions there.
What am I, in school? Not gonna do that. Anyways.
Now, hopefully the topics that we get into throughout the course are going to bring up some questions in your life. That's a good thing. We want you to ask questions. We're not scared of your questions. We welcome them. We want to journey together as we explore faith and really deal with the toughest questions in Christianity. So,
what is faith? Let's begin there. That would be the first question I would say. Stop right there. What do you mean by the word faith? Give me your definition of it. Whatever your version is, that's fine. I'll take that, and we'll use that going forward, so that we both have the same idea going forward. Because by faith, when I use the word faith, I mean belief without any empirical, investigatable, testable evidence at all. It is a belief fostered by teaching, by rhetoric, by bad arguments, by religion, by pattern seeking, by whatever. Faith is not something that a skeptic would have. Faith is the opposite of skepticism. And hi, Brian. Good to catch you live as well. I guess, however that works. So I would ask first, what is faith? That's my first question. But I guess I have to send that question to you guys, because I don't think you'll watch this video. But anyways, yeah.
So what I want you to do is, when you write down your question, you see a number on the screen right there? I want you to text your questions to that number if you feel comfortable, okay? So 604-243-4102. Write that number down right now so you have it with you. That's the number that you're going to text in your question. Now, those questions go directly to my phone, and I will be able to ask Darren live at the end of today's teaching some of your questions, okay? So this will be the interactive part where you want your questions being answered. We'll answer them, okay? We'll ask them right to Darren. Now, speaking of Darren, let's introduce him. Hello and welcome, Darren. Good to have you.
Hey, Simon. Great to be here. Hello, folks.
Can you say that again? My sound was off. Are you there?
Yes, I said hello. Great to be here.
Perfect. Okay, good. I can hear you now. Welcome, Darren. So Darren is the lead pastor of Broadway Church in Vancouver, and he's been the lead pastor there for about 12 years. Darren, why don't you start us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself. And you know what, Darren, answer me this. Why skeptic? Where did the idea of skeptic even come from? Why are we doing a course like this?
Yeah, great question. So I became a Christ follower when I was 19 years of age.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and skip this. I don't care. I don't care. Don't care. Couldn't care less. If I tried to care less, I can't care less because I have no care at all. This is Skeptic Course. What's the evidence for the existence of God? By evidence, of course, I'm sure they mean bad arguments.
And so really Skeptic is a accumulation, if you will, of 40 years of research and work that I put together, gone into colleges and the evidence for the existence of God, or the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. I'm a Christ follower, ask me anything. And those have been some exciting, some fun times as well. So we've kind of called Skeptic, and it's been an exciting journey over those years.
So they made the word skeptic to be their apologetic study course. That's the answer to the question why that name, because that's the name they picked for their apologetics. Anyways.
Awesome. Well, Darren, I appreciate your time. Thank you for putting these people that are tuning in, watching. Now we've had started, and then we're gonna have more people tuning in tonight.
Come on, get to the point.
That wherever you're watching from tonight,
oh my word,
so good to have
Skippy,
you.
I'm sorry.
I did want to mention, so the content and the material that we're at the beginning of January of 20, because it was filmed a year ago. If you see people it was all filmed. So this will be our third that you've joined us of God. We are so excited to jump right in. So get your phones ready. Get ready to text in your questions if you have any, and we'll see Darren at the end, and we'll ask him some live questions.
Hurry up!
So, with no further ado, what is the evidence for the existence of God?
Here we go. Yeah, finally. Jeez.
Welcome, folks. I'm honored that you've chosen to be with us. I'm honored that you've chosen to spend the time and invest the time here in the Skeptic Course. Maybe you're just kind of dipping your toe into it tonight, and you're not sure if you're going to carry through with the whole course. Great idea.
Just get to
Come
the point.
Test drive it tonight, and hopefully you're going to enjoy yourself, learn something, meet some great people at the table around you. But we're going to get right into it. We're going on a journey starting tonight.
Hurry up!
Grab your book, and I'm going to do my best every time there's a blank, and I'll say, as your outline.
Okay. Now this has been used in churches. This fill in the blank thing. This is you. I remember this when I went to church. Yeah, I've been a skeptic for 10 years. I don't know, long time ago. So, but they did this sometimes. Not all churches that I went to, but some did. And you're like, oh, yes. Oh, blank is the, presence of God. And I filled it in. And it's like, it's a little thing for you to do. And it's like you're back in school or something. It's treating people like they're kids. Okay. No, we don't need to fill in things or whatever. Providing pen and paper, pencil and paper for people to take notes, that's nice. But to just fill in the blank, this is a teaching tactic that's being utilized. Like if you write down the word yourself, then your brain interprets that as I'm writing something important. I'm putting energy into this. So now I've sunk cost into this, which leads to the sunk cost fallacy. Why did I put all this energy into writing this down if it's not true? So this is just one big tactic that is utilized. Now it's utilized in the education system as well, and maybe it shouldn't be, but because you don't tend to remember this stuff later, because you're not being taught to memorize this, or you are memorizing it maybe in a way, but it's utilizing psychology and psychological methods to trick you into believing that what you wrote is important, rather than understanding what it is that you're looking at, if it's good evidence in the first place, how to look for evidence, how to gather evidence, how to document evidence, what evidence even is. That would be my second question. What do you mean by evidence? So this I view already. You're already no longer allowed to use the word skeptic. You must revoke the use of that word because I said so. So stop it. But anyways, just wanted to point that out. Here we go.
Says or something like that, so you'll be able to follow along with me. So let's get right into it. Are you ready, folks? A construction crew working on the foundation of a high-rise building in downtown Vancouver recently discovered some copper wire about 150 feet below ground. So local archaeologists claim that this proves that Vancouver was far ahead of the rest of our country. They claim that this proved that our ancestors in Vancouver had an ancient phone network. Well, not to be outdone, a construction crew in Toronto, of course, claimed to have discovered glass fragments 200 feet below ground there. And so Ontario archaeologists immediately claimed that this proved that their ancestors had an ancient fiber optic network.
I don't believe you for either of these stories because they're just stories. You can make the claim that archaeology group, what archaeology group? Archaeology groups are funded. They have names. They have people in the groups. Who the hell are you talking about? When was this done? It's just, you know, over here they did this, over here they did this. So I suspect strongly that this is going to be used to then say, oh, but they were lying, so let's mistrust authority or something like this, or this is a good reason to be a skeptic. And by skeptic, we're going to be skeptical about certain things, but not skeptical about other things or something like this. Let's see, though. But already, he's done a disservice to all of us by just saying these events happened. Some archaeologists in New York found this copper wiring. I'm not going to tell you when or where or what the group is called or who's in the group, who funded it, what the exhibition was hoping to find. I'm not going to tell you any of the pertinent details. I'm just going to tell you that this happened. This is nothing more than an anecdote, and this is, again, a typical thing found in theology and in apologetics. I'm going to tell you a story. That's all this is. And unless it really happened, which if it did, then you would have all the evidence that I'm asking for. I don't care. What's it have to do with anything? But I think that we're going to find that these stories are going to be used in some way to show that they were wrong or that archaeology is to be mistrusted or something like that. That's my prediction.
Classic Toronto, right? Well, a week later, a crew was digging in downtown St. John's, Newfoundland. And they reached 250 feet below ground, and they found absolutely nothing. And their archaeologists immediately claimed that this proved that Newfoundland was home to the very first wireless network. Do Christ followers, Christians, make the same wild assertion? Do we claim that God exists based on no evidence whatsoever? In 1962, Gerasim Titov, the Soviet cosmonaut and the second man in space, he stood before a nest of microphones upon his return to Earth. And he was asked what he saw. He replied, and I quote, he said, "I saw no God nor any angels while in orbit." And people laughed. If we can't see him with our eyes, how can we know that there is a God? I mean, what evidence can we actually point to? Bertrand Russell, the famous atheist, was once asked what he would do if he were to die and discover that he was wrong. They said, "What would you say to God if you had to stand before him someday?" And here was Bertrand Russell's reply. He said, "I would tell him that he didn't give me enough evidence."
I don't care. I don't care about any of this. None of this at all matters. Okay? Right now, you're constructing a narrative. Here's this person that said this thing at such and so time. When did Bernard Russell say that? What book? What relevance does it have to do with anything? Just, oh, look, you know, and then, so that first part, when you were saying that the archaeologists did this, I took that seriously. I thought you were presenting us with something real. No, you were presenting a joke, I guess. And then you move on to real things that you're trying to utilize as examples of the cosmonaut. You know, he didn't see God out there. Haha, that's funny. because it was a joke. That's how, I guess, okay, I don't know what that has to do with anything. And then you ask this question that doesn't matter because you're just going to answer your own question of, do Christians do the same thing? Why not just skip all this nonsense and just present the evidence? Enough of the padding. Let's get to the chase. Let's just skip to the evidence. You don't have any. You're not going to present it. But I'm saying if you actually had evidence, I would think that you wouldn't need any of these quotes from anybody, because the argument should stand or fail on its own merits without having to appeal to this quote and this person and that person. A while back, I did a debate with Big Giant Eyebrow Guy on on Modern Day Debate of all things. I didn't want to do it on that channel, but that's all he would agree to. But anyways, and Big Eyebrow Guy kept bringing up names of people who also thought that you didn't need evidence when doing scientific research. And I just kept saying, I don't care. That doesn't matter, because the argument has to stand or fail on its own merits. That you found some people that happen to agree that you can somehow do science without empirical investigation, that doesn't matter. My point stands. You don't have empirical evidence for it. And he wouldn't even admit that he didn't have empirical evidence or repeatable tests for God. I said, are you going to admit that? And he never did. He never admitted to that. Because they are focused on these bad arguments. He also used the shotgun tactic because, of course he did. But at any rate, they don't have the evidence. Otherwise, they would just give the evidence.
So was Bertrand Russell right? Is there a lack of evidence for the existence of God? Well, 2,000 years ago, a highly educated and influential man named Paul addressed this subject in a letter he wrote to a church in the ancient city of Rome. Listen carefully to what that letter says. Paul taught that there are...
I don't care. I don't care what Paul said to whom. Now, what you could do here is show me that the church that Paul wrote to existed at some point. That would be good. I would like that. Can you show me that the church existed at all? Like, that would be a really good thing, because Paul apparently wrote this to a specific church. So here's a map of the area, and here's where we found the remains, because it would be remains of this church. And here's how we were able to identify it as this church. Or maybe there's a church built on top of it, but they would, archaeology could dig under and find stuff underneath. Anyways, you would actually have something, and I'd be like, oh, there you go. Actual, tangible something that I could sink my teeth into. Something that I actually go, okay, now I know you're talking about a real location, and so now I have something to go on. No, it's just he wrote this thing to a church. Okay, why do I care what Paul said at all? I don't, because I'm a skeptic. You have to demonstrate that what Paul said is true. You might view him as an authority figure for whatever reason. I think Paul was just the first apologetic. Paul came along, he made up a story, and people believed him. And then he used that to inflict his idea of theology on those that would listen to him. That's what I think. So what do you have to offer that is evidence to change my mind? So far, you have a letter that somebody maybe wrote to some church that I don't even know if it existed or not. That's not evidence at all for anything at any conceivable level that we could have evidence. But please, go on.
There are those who, and I quote, suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them. He said it's obvious to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, like his eternal power, his divine nature, have clearly been seen. How? Being understood from what has been made, so that men and women are without excuse. So Paul...
Yeah, okay, so this is incoherent gobbledygook. Now, maybe it's a problem of the translation. Now, it would have been interesting for you to say that Paul would have been speaking in the language that he would have been speaking in. I'm not going to give that to you because really the burden should have been on you to know what that language is. I know that my viewers probably know. I'm not going to say the language because come on, you guys should know this by now, right? Here's what the language Paul was speaking, and here's how we translated it into English, and who did that translation, by the way, and how long did that take, and where did we discover the letter that Paul wrote, by the way? Where was it? Where did we discover it? When is the earliest copy of that letter? Because I think the original letter probably is long gone. I don't know. Where was that found? That would be interesting. I would like to know that. Where was this document originally found? Who found it? How do we know that, what dating methods were used on it? Were other copies found other places and other locations by separate archaeological teams who we could name, and we could say this archaeological team staffed by so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so on X date found the letter, this copy that we've dated back to X date that we think is from Paul to this church, and these people found all fragments here that are the same, and how about that? That's actual information. That's real information. That's something that's actually tangible evidence, because we have archaeology that says, look, we studied these texts. We know that when they were written. We also infer that they're copies because of X, Y, and Z reasons. And here's when we found them and where we found them. And here's who translated it originally. And here's how that worked. Those are actual evidences of a chain of events that would then allow me to know that some of this matters at some level. But you've done none of that difficult work to find all that information, and so it's up to us, I guess, to look for all that information. By the way, when I started deconverting, I looked into the archaeology first. That's what got me to question, because there's nothing. There's like silence in archaeology for like a lot of this stuff. Like, where did they find this stuff? It's really hard to find actual information about this stuff in archaeology. Maybe somebody knows better than I how to find such things, but that's actual evidence. Now you're talking about a find in some site of a parchment of a paper that says words on it that we then had to translate into our modern language. Who did that? How accurate is that translation? How do we know how accurate it is? Have we been able to scrutinize it? Because in the modern language, it doesn't sound like it makes any sense whatsoever. To show invisible quality, you can't show something that's invisible because it's fucking invisible. If it's invisible, I can't see it. So maybe in the original language, it didn't sound like nonsense, and it might be worth some value to have gone over that, because that would actually be something for us to dig into. But right now, you're not doing any of that, so none of this really matters. You just say, well, I have this book. I don't know who published it, by the way. Who published your Bible? I asked that quite some time ago to somebody, and they had no idea. They were like, God published it? No, somebody, a publishing firm published the Bible. You're holding a book that you're going to tell people this is the most important book in the world. And I go, who published it? And you go, I don't know. Well, who translated it? I don't know. When? I don't know. This is bottom tier apologetics. I'm telling you a story. I'm telling you about Paul because most of the people in his audience are Christians. They already believe Paul is an authority. I don't. I'm an actual skeptic. I don't even know that Paul really even existed, because somebody could have pretended that Paul existed and wrote down that Paul existed for all I know. And, now I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm just saying it could be. So where is actual evidence? Are you going to give us anything at all to go on? Or are you just going to keep telling us what Paul said? I don't care. Oh, these things are made obvious. If they're so obvious, and here's the other problem with this, ignoring all the translation things and all the things I've already complained about. Okay, if it's obvious, and I shouldn't have to say this because it should be obvious, but if it's so obvious, then why is it that you have to tell anybody about it? Amazing, isn't it? Like, okay, and I'll hold up one of my little pet things here. Okay, this is pretty damn obvious. I mean, anyone that watches this will be like, yeah, I can talk about this. You can tell me what color it is. You can tell me what shape it is. You can tell me what animal it's supposed to be representing. You can maybe even tell me from what video game it came from. Or you could describe this. You could draw it. You could write about it. That's obvious. It's so damn obvious that if I just put it on my head and I keep going with this, that nobody even needs to point it out because it's so damn obvious that it's there. Nobody's gonna doubt that this damn thing is fucking up there because it's obvious. So if God is so damn obvious, then why don't people around the world all agree that there is a God and that it's the same God? Because it's not obvious. If it was obvious, you wouldn't have to point out that it's obvious. And now God fell off my head. I named him God. He was named Moo. I renamed him into God just now for the screw it. He won't be on the top of my video head. Hope you're happy, sheep. Anyways, back to the video.
I was saying that there is enough evidence before our eyes to grasp the truth that we are not alone in the universe, that there is someone behind all of this. In other words, you need to do nothing more than, as your outline says, look around you. If you're looking for evidence for the existence of God, begin by looking around you. So are you looking for evidence for God's existence? Have you considered, as your outline says, letter A, the existence of the universe? I bring to you evidence for the existence of God. First of all, the existence of the universe. Have you ever wondered where the universe came from? I mean, okay, I have...
All right, let me literally do what he said to do. Look around me. I don't see God. What am I looking for? This is the stupidest thing. How do you determine what you're looking for? What methodology are you telling me to employ? Look around isn't a methodology, okay? Look, I've got a good friend, Steven. He's into geology. He knows all that stuff. He's got degrees in it, and he understands rocks really well. And I want to try to understand rocks, but I don't. I'm stupid. I'm a dum-dum, okay? And I'm like, hey, maybe you could tell me in my area what rocks are interesting. And he gave me these websites to go to that I could find information, and I didn't understand those websites because I'm a dummy. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing on these websites. Help me. And he's just like, yeah, he ignored me. I don't know. Maybe he had something better to do, probably. But anyways, it's complicated stuff, right? Reality is really hard to understand, but there's a methodology for figuring out. Because I held up a rock and I showed him the picture and I sent him the picture. And he's like, I can't tell you anything about this because it's not enough just to see the damn thing. I have to have it here. I have to put it under a microscope. I have to feel it. I have to, test it because it's not easy. Okay, there's a difficulty in identifying things. There's a process for it. So how do you go about looking for the evidence of X in the first place? Well, first, it might be useful to know what the hell X is. That's a good idea. But then, what is the methodology for finding X? Look around is not a methodology. I looked around. I didn't see God. Not that I know what God's supposed to look like, but then you move forward to the universe being evidence for God. No, the universe is evidence of, ready for it, the universe. I know, it's amazing. Just like this thing, this white octopus, I really need to paint him still, is evidence of it. It isn't evidence of anything besides itself. Now, how did it come to be? Oh, well, that's a different question, right? Or what was the manufacturing process or whatever? And you could say that about my hand. You could say, how did my hand come to be my hand? You know, go, okay, well, let's, you know, this is biology that we're going to get into now to answer that question, because it's a physical object. It's an object in this world, and so we can study it, and so that's going to require a methodology. And what's that methodology, and how does it work? That's how we, as a real skeptic, and I hate to no true Scotsman the word skeptic, but I dare say that whatever you're doing, it's not skepticism, and the word skeptic you're just using because it sounded good to use. You don't know what it is to be a skeptic. Look at the universe. Well, I mean, I could look at my single part of the universe. Have you ever asked this question? This is a red herring, possible red herring, or complete tangent. Why does it matter what question I have or haven't asked? And what if the answer is, I don't know? It's like, how did the universe get here? Don't know. Why is the universe? Don't know. But the universe don't know. I have no idea. Neither do you. You're not. And if we're going to figure out anything about the universe, the only system I know that can do that is science. Not religion, not philosophy, but science, because it's an actual thing that really exists for real. It's not just a concept that exists in your brain or my brain. It's actually out there to be discovered and analyzed and tested and gather information about. But you're doing, oh, what about this? How do you explain this? That I don't understand how it works. Therefore, God did it. And so it's nonsense. It's not evidence of anything at all. And having a question to which you don't know the answer to is also not evidence of anything at all. So if you're going to say that the universe is evidence for something other than the universe, then you're going to have to show association, causation. You're going to have to show the science behind this. You're going to have to show something. But this isn't, so far, none of this is evidence for God. If you do the cosmological argument, I swear, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it if he does the KCA. I will lose it completely. Deconverted Man will lose it. It will be the most fundamentally spectacular Deconverted Man loses it of all time. Pray that he doesn't do it. Let's find out.
Have this podium here on the platform. Let's look at this podium for a second. Where did that podium come from? Well, what are the options? Well, one of my options is it is an eternal podium. It has always existed from eternity past. It will always exist for the future. It had no beginning. It's an eternal podium. That's one option. Another option is it created itself. It suddenly appeared out of nothing in a vast explosion of nothingness. And it simply created itself. Or a third option, it has a creator. Someone made it. Someone brought it into existence. Now, which of those three options seems the most likely, the most plausible to you? It's always existed. It's an eternal podium. It created itself in a vast explosion of nothingness. Or someone created it. Well, what's true of this podium is equally true of our universe. So what are the possible explanations for the existence?
Oh, you didn't hear me that whole time I was yelling at him. The watchmaker argument. It's the fucking watchmaker argument. I hate you. I hate you. This isn't skepticism. This isn't even close. This is a false trichotomy. There's three choices. Here they are. 1, 2, and 3. Can't be this. Can't be that. Must be that. It's a false trichotomy. You don't even know that those are your only three options, first of all. Secondly, when comparing apples to oranges, or actually in this case, apples to a fucking TV screen, there's a huge difference in these things. The podium we recognize as a human-made artifact. The universe, we don't recognize in that way. To have those two be analogous to each other, everything that you look at is made. Every single thing. There is no more analogy. Your microphones, you, the human, are also made. Forget about the universe. Everything is made. Well, the universe, I guess, is everything, but there's no more analogy because you couldn't say the universe is like the podium. The universe is the podium. In fact, actually, scientifically speaking, the podium is of the universe. All the things that make up the podium actually are in the actual universe. But you said a word. You said, when did the podium begin, or how long has it existed, or whatever? And these are ambiguous terms. And so all we've had now is the watchmaker analogy put to the universe. Well, is it always been there? Did it explode out of nothing? Which, of course, that means he doesn't understand Big Bang cosmology. Of course, explosion. Big Bang must mean explosion. I'm dumb. No, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Okay? You have zero idea. You're not a cosmologist. You have zero anything to speak on. But at least you haven't done the KCA yet, so I haven't completely lost my mind.
The undeniable existence of our universe. Well, as far as our best thinkers are concerned, there are only two possible explanations. One of these explanations I'm about to give you has to be true. The universe is either eternal or our universe had a beginning, one or the other. The universe is either eternal.
False dichotomy. There might be another choice. And the thing is, when you say false dichotomy, people go, oh, what's the other choice? That's not the thing. The thing is, you have to show that those things are the only choices, okay? It's not an on-off switch, okay? Flick, flick. It's either on or off. Either it is or it isn't, right? That's a true dichotomy. We can recognize it as a true dichotomy. This, you're saying, it's this or it's this. How do you know that? How do you know that those are the only options? What was your methodology for determining that either of those is an option, let alone that either of those is the only options? What if it's both? What if it's kind of one and kind of the other? What if it's something else? What's your methodology? How did you arrive at the conclusion that it has to be this or that? You haven't demonstrated that. You've simply asserted it. An assertion without any argument, you could just dismiss out of hand. That's Hitchens' razor, I believe. But you need to be able to show, within logic at least, you need to be able to show that this is a true dichotomy, which would require a truth table and things like this. It's funny, a while back I got comments on a video where I started questioning the guy's logic, and he came back at me with truth tables and things to indicate that he understood logic, but sadly he wouldn't withdraw his attack against me, the person, so I wasn't going to talk to him. It would have been great. I would have had him on here. I would have talked to him. I would have pwned him. It would have been amazing, but he wasn't willing to withdraw his personal insult, which means to me that he might know something about logic, but in the end he cared more about, one-upping me rather than actually engaging in an intellectual debate using logic. But anyways, that's a side tangent. I don't know why I mentioned that. It has nothing to do with this video, to be honest. I blame Blaster Master. That's who. Back to the video. Shut up, me.
Eternal or it had a beginning. Now, for centuries, atheists proposed the first option. They proposed the option that the universe was eternal, that it had...
What atheists? Which ones? Do you have a list of names? Because you made a claim here. You said atheists proposed that the universe was eternal. Okay. Who? How do we know that they were atheists? Was it just atheists? Was it other people of other faiths as well? Does it matter who proposes X as the explanation? What matters is the methodology, not the belief system of that person. This is nothing new. You haven't given us any evidence for anything yet. All you're doing is the same talking points that we've heard other apologists use over and over and over again. This is nothing new under the sun. You've just labeled your apologetics as something different. A big whoop. I don't care. Get to the evidence. You don't have any yet. You're not going to have any at all. But I'm saying if you did have evidence, you still haven't gotten to it yet.
It always existed. Bertrand Russell's famous claim was, in a court case, he said that the universe is, in a debate I should say, that the universe is just there. That's all. He said, deal with it. The universe is eternal. It's just there. That long represented the atheist position. However, in 1929, astronomer Edwin Hubble made a discovery that rocked the scientific world. Through his observations from distant space, Hubble was able to prove that the galaxies in our universe were moving away from us. Hubble had visual and measurable evidence that our universe is expanding. And this fact led to an undeniable reality. If our universe is expanding, as your outline says, that means the universe had a beginning.
Wrong. Just wrong. Gone over this many times, but cosmologists have said in regards to this that beginning isn't a very good word, because the time, or at least to say that there's no before at any rate. If you really want to say it began, I guess because we don't have other words available, I suppose, but you really don't understand the science. I don't understand the science, but I do understand enough to know that I don't have any authority to speak on this subject. Neither do you. You're a fucking pastor. Who cares? This isn't evidence of anything. And again, who discovered this, or if it did or didn't rock the scientific community, whatever that means, that doesn't matter. None of it is proof of anything. That the universe, that you're saying the universe had a beginning, doesn't mean anything. So what? So I do want to talk to chat a moment, if you'll indulge me, because I thought this was a good point. Emotionally magnetic psychopath, by their definition, any rock you find anywhere in the world is designed by God. Designed by God, but it's synonymous with not designed by man. And he's not saying it's good method, but it's true dichotomy. Either it's made or / manipulated by man, or it's not. Right. Under there, but then man is also made by God, so everything is ultimately manipulated by God. And so none of it really matters at that point. Everything points to God, but which God? Well, their God, of course. But what's missing from his presentation, and all apologetics presentations, is the methodology that we're employing to determine if something was made by man or not. Now, I can show you rock formations that look like they were designed by humans. There's that Indian one. It looks like an Indian chief. You know, it's this huge rock thing. But if you look at it from a different angle, it doesn't really look like that anymore. You know, but it was formed not by man. It was formed by natural forces. But if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't. You know, you can't. You know, there was that rock found on Mars that looked like a face. Of course, if you pulled back, it was one among many zillions of rocks. So, you know, just, you know, we found this one rock that kind of looks like a face. You know. No, because we're pattern-seeking creatures. We see faces and things all the time, even when it just was two holes and a dot. That's not a... Is that a face? Well, yeah, we thought it was a face, so it's a face. all he's doing is saying, oh, look, science found that there's a beginning, and the Bible says there's a beginning, therefore they must be right. Ha 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 ha. Oh, God, it's not evidence of anything yet. Please don't do the KCA, but you're getting close. I just...
See, that's like a balloon. If the universe is expanding, that means, as your outline says, the universe had to have had a beginning. And that led to what's now known as the Big Bang cosmology. That roughly 13.7, 13.8 billion years ago, our universe began to exist. Now, if the universe had a beginning, where did it come from? Now, there are only two possible options. As your outline says, the universe either brought itself into existence or it had a creator. There are only two options.
No. 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 I love how he says, as your outline says. Now, see, this is another psychological trick, okay? Your outline now is an authority source. Your outline says it. And you've been writing in that outline, haven't you? You've been interacting with that outline, so it must be important. Ooh, your outline says it. It must be true. Fuck you, Pastor. These are not the only options. In fact, one of those isn't even an option yet because you have yet to demonstrate that God is even a thing in the first place. And to say that it came from itself, what do you mean by that? The universe made itself. It's incoherent. You're not making. What do you mean by the word universe at this point, right? And there is a problem of that, you know. And these are difficult to talk about cosmology. And you know, I believe Blaster Master here wonders if they've ever looked into, cosmologists might have to say to this argument, it doesn't appear that they even care to see what, you know, if their beliefs are accurate or not. No, they don't. They don't. You know, I've put as a link to the World Science Fair on antimatter, where they talked about antimatter for an hour plus with all these scientists who know what the hell they're saying. And the one guy shows the universe like this. Like he has, you know, the classic, you see the universe graph, you've seen that. But he has like this, and he goes, if there's antimatter, then you have an antimatter universe and a matter universe simultaneously, and so you wouldn't know which universe you were in. You wouldn't know if you were in the antimatter universe or in the matter universe, and that both are duplicates of each other, just going in different ways. And I thought, that's amazing that that's possible. I don't know if it's true, but it's amazing that that's possible. I never thought of it before. And in what way could you say the universe is creating itself in that model? You couldn't, because what you're talking about is you're talking about the single point, the singularity, if you will. And is that the universe? I don't know. What is it? I don't even know what it's called. I don't know what we should call it. And I brought this up before, but it's worth going over, I think, because I think it demonstrates the problem that I have in general with all this nonsense. Besides it being non-scientific and non-logical, and we're not learning a damn thing about evidence at all. We haven't heard any evidence about anything. And we're not going to, I don't think, but, you know, just saying. So, okay. All right. So I've almost got my stupid MS Paint ready. So there we go. Okay, here we go. All right. Application window. Okay, so we've got the universe, right? Okay, this is the universe, right? We're saying that this is the universe right here. And then we have this. What the hell is this? What do we call that, right? So here's the thing, okay? Because let's just go ahead and, you know, nuke that. Because, no, I don't need to save. Okay, so everything we know, right, is like, I don't know, there. Everything we know is there, right? And so this is the universe. I don't care if I'm spelling everything right or not anymore. And then, so what's outside the universe? Like, what's the name of that? Like, what is this called? Like, if there is anything other than the universe, right, then we need to name it. We don't have a name for it, right? So if you shrink down universe into like this dot, you know, and you're like, okay, well, there, you know, I got to make the dot big enough for you to see, but you know, I was like, okay, here's the fucking dot of the universe, right? And you go, okay, well, there's the universe, right? And you go, okay, but then I'm like, okay, great, but what's this? Like all this empty space around it, what is this called? Like, what is this? I don't know. It doesn't have a name. Now, maybe science has come up with a name. I don't know. But what I find funny about this sort of stuff is they say the universe didn't create itself. Well, if all that empty space is also the universe, then the universe absolutely made itself. Because now I've seen this demonstrated. It's like if you have rubber and you stretch it and you draw a dot on the rubber and you start stretching the rubber, that dot becomes bigger. Okay. And if the fabric of reality as we understand it is simply stretching in that way, then that little dot is the universe, and so is the rubber that's stretching is also the universe. Where is the universe expanding into? It's expanding into the infinite void of reality that we also call the universe, I guess. Like if you somehow were able to accelerate yourself beyond all the physical matter of the universe that's come out of the singularity, would you ever cross this line and find yourself outside of the universe, or would it just be more space? I don't know. I have no idea. But that's a question that you couldn't just answer by doing these false dichotomies and by trying to answer it philosophically and just pondering. I wonder if cat is good or not. Is cat, you know, if I put cat in microwave, is that good or is it bad? And if it's bad, then why is it bad? And that must mean the universe had a cat, and then the cat is the beginning of the universe, and therefore everything is cats. Where was I again? I don't remember. What am I talking about? What's going on? I don't know. Okay, anyways.
It either brought itself into existence or it had a creator. Now, which makes more sense to you? Do you think the universe created itself, brought itself into existence, or do you think it's more plausible that the universe was created? Well,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what one thinks is more plausible. In fact, you have yet to demonstrate that it's a possibility or not. Either it's this or it's this. Which one is it? I don't know. You haven't even shown me that this is even a possibility. So I'll go to the age-old, I've done this many times. Where's my door? Here's my door. Way down. No, okay. I'll use the door behind me. Okay, there's the front door. Well, it's the door I use that I consider the front. What is the front door? Whatever. There's the front door. If that door opens, I'm going to scream like a little girl. That's first and foremost. Okay, I'm going to, ah! Because I'm not expecting that door to open. Now, if my brother has good timing, he would come home at this moment and the door would open, and then I would scream like a little girl. Ah! You know, I'm not sure that that's how a little girl screams. I haven't captured I mean, I don't know what little girls sound like, and anyone that says otherwise is wrong. Yeah, I'm just joking. Anyways, shut up. You know. Anyways, but the door, if the door opens, right, it's locked. I can see that it's locked from here. Pretty damn sure it's locked because I checked it. So if it opens, then after I scream like a little girl, I'm going to jump up. It's going to pull out my cord of my computer. It's going to bust it's going to hurt my ears. And I'm going to run over to see what's going on and look outside to see who is doing it. Because my brain is instantly going to assume it's a person. Because people open doors. Usually. Okay, but let's say that I did all that, and I open the door, and there's nothing. There's just it's the porch, and I see nothing, and I go looking around for somebody running away, or nobody in sight. And then I look. I'm also looking for animals. Maybe it was an animal that did it. Nope, I don't see that either. Okay, I must have been wrong about the door being locked. Maybe there's something wrong with the locking mechanism. So I would check that, and I'd investigate that very carefully. Open and close it, make sure it was latched correctly. At what point would I say, well, it's either the door just opened by itself and I don't know the answer, or it's a ghost? Which is more plausible? Well, I haven't demonstrated that ghost is even an option yet, have I? What the hell do you mean by ghost? Well, a ghost is a spirit of somebody. Really? Yes. And they can open doors. Really? How do you know that? Well, look, it's either a ghost did it, or or it's just it opened on its own, and that doesn't make sense. So it must be ghost, right? No, you haven't demonstrated ghost is even an option yet. Okay, the door didn't open. Damn it. One of these days, it's going to happen. It's going to scare the hell out of me, and it's going to be really funny. But not today, I guess. But you haven't demonstrated that God is or creation or whatever is even an option yet. So your dichotomy is false.
Let's look at the first one. Could the universe have brought itself into existence? Could the universe cause itself to exist? Now think about it. How could something cause itself to exist? It's actually an irrational concept. In order to cause yourself to exist, you have to exist before you exist in order to bring yourself into existence. Think about it. To cause yourself to exist, you have to exist before you exist in order to bring yourself into existence. Essentially, when you get right down to it, the foundation of atheism is this. On its own, out of...
There's no foundation in that respect in atheism at all, because atheism isn't a worldview. It's part of a worldview, but it is in and of itself. It doesn't offer explanations. It doesn't demand that you assert anything. This is another false dichotomy. You're pitting us versus them. The atheists say X, X is wrong, we're right. No, the atheists don't think this, don't say this. You haven't demonstrated that they have. And so, no, this is not atheism. This is also not evidence at all for God. You haven't given us anything that even resembles evidence. Not even a little. Do something. Give me an argument at least. Oh man, now I kind of want him to do the Kalam just so I can go off on that. No, I don't want him to do that. I don't know what I want anymore. Back to the video.
Nothing came everything. On its own, out of nothing came everything. As your outline says, the most plausible alternative is that our universe was created by an incredibly powerful outside agent. Incredibly powerful outside agent was created. Now, this often leads to the question that
again, with the psychological trick of your outline says this and the authority is now, it's passed from him to your outline. Your outline, somebody took time and energy to get that outline together, and you have been writing on it, so that must be important. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing that. You wouldn't be holding it and looking at it. So you're tricked into thinking that this is an authority source, but it's not. Okay? this guy, because he's on stage, he's at the center of attention. He's on usually stages are elevated. I don't know if he's elevated or not, but typically they are. And there's another psychological reason for that. The speaker on the soapbox. Why do you stand on the soapbox? Well, so that everybody can look at you, right? So that you're the focal point of attention. The stage is elevated. Or in the cases where the stage isn't elevated, like in what's called the round in theater, which I used to do. I know it's hard to believe that I was ever in theater, But anyways, you have all the things looking down at the circle, which is the stage, and so the focus of everyone is drawn to this one spot, and whoever is there doing the speaking, they're important because they're the one there doing the speaking. So that gives them this semblance of authority. And we know through psychological experiments that people will do things that an authority says to do, even when they don't want to. We've seen that in the Miller experiment and things like this, that it's really easy for people to give up their own personal agency to authority. Now, some people will resist, and that's a good thing, but more often than not, people won't. Of course, if you know what the experiment's about, that probably would spoil it, and you wouldn't, be able to actually engage in it. But nonetheless, because he's on stage, because he's at this podium, because he's in front of everybody, that gives him this weight of authority. He's speaking. He's microphoned. So he must know something I don't. Otherwise, why am I listening to him? All of these are psychological tricks used to manipulate the audience. They don't work on YouTube that well, but it's still this air of authority. And look at your pamphlet, and it says this as if that matters. But I know this is kind of odd to talk about, because usually I'd be focusing on the logical fallacies, which are numerous at this point. I can't even begin to rattle off what logical fallacies he's performed. False dichotomy multiple times, equivocation a couple times, assertions, bald assertions, outright lies, half-truths, false trichotomy, and of course he is a formal fallacy, failure to give an argument, in fact, failure to provide evidence at all so far. But at any rate, I wanted to address the psychology of this stuff because, not that I'm an expert on it or whatever, but I just wanted to draw us the attention to it, because the news does a similar thing where the news person is staring at you, and they're behind a desk, and they have papers there, and they're all, they're in so they're an authority source. They know something you don't. Now they don't. They're being told what to say by somebody else that you don't see, and that person got that information from goodness knows who, and so we have a narrative of construction. And the methodology of that, to understand that and expose that, is very important for us to be able to fight against it, I think. So that's why I wanted to go into that. Okay, anyways. What was I saying? Oh, right. He's wrong about atheist anything. So
every child has asked a parent at some time, well, then who created God? Every kid said, Mom, Dad, where did I come from? Well, we created you. Well, who created you? Well, our parents. Who created them? Their parents. Who created them? Their parents. Who created them? Just be quiet. Well, who created them? Who created the very first humans? God did. Who created God? Some people, when they ask this question, they think they're tricking you, and they're asking you some impossible question. No, it's actually quite simple. No one made God. God has always existed. God is an eternal being.
But before you said that in regards to the podium, either it's always been, or it was created, or whatever, right? But God has always been. That's just the assertion that you're making. You're not demonstrating that it's true. You're just asserting. And you're saying, in regards to the rules that we followed, God doesn't apply to these rules. This is called special pleading. Everything has a cause except for the things that don't have a cause. What? How? What is a thing other than God? Can you name anything that has no cause? Or is God the only thing that has no cause? If it is the only thing that has no cause, and how you know that, I don't know, but nonetheless, if it's the only thing, then I certainly think there's special pleading going on. But since you have yet to demonstrate that God's even a thing yet, none of this matters. And since you've outright lied about atheist positions and asserted that atheism has a position other than we don't believe in God, I distrust what you're saying at this point. Okay, let's see. Pure actuality or substance existence, everything is a psychological trick, like how scientists have white lab coats. They can just lie and say things like, what? Like, Neo-Logos, I don't know what you're talking about or where you've come from or why you're here. But welcome to my channel. Anyways, I'm not done ranting about this quite yet. Almost done, because I'm hitting an hour. And I'm only at 16 minutes, 36 seconds. But at least he hasn't done the Kalam yet.
By the way, this isn't special pleading on the part of the theist. For centuries,
yes, it is!
The theist asserted that the universe was eternal.
No, they didn't. You haven't proven that they have.
Well, if God can be eternal, then why can't the universe be eternal? Because as Edwin Hubble demonstrated, we have strong and convincing evidence that the universe had a beginning. That's why. So the most plausible explanation.
And yet what we don't have evidence at all for is this thing that you're calling God. You've offered zero evidence of it.
Explanation for the existence of our universe is an eternal being that is powerful enough to create and sustain our universe. And we can teach.
That's not plausible because you haven't demonstrated that it even is a plausibility at all yet. So you can't, and plausibility, what metric are you using to determine plausibility? That requires some, are you talking about mathematical probability? Or what do you mean by plausibility here? You haven't demonstrated the methodology. You've simply asserted this is the atheist view, which is a lie, because atheist doesn't have a view in that way. And then you said, but our view is this. And then you said something that is interesting. Well, if the universe can be eternal, why can't God? Now, Carl Sagan already gave this answer, but in a different way. He said, if you believe that that God always existed, why not save a step and just say the universe always existed? And you say, well, because there's evidence that that's not true. But is there? No. The Big Bang cosmology just says it was at a small point in the past, but we don't know much about that small point. If that small point existed in that state for until time started, and then it started to stretch out, then all of the universe was eternal because the entire universe was that point, but also the universe is the other stuff around that point, or whatever the hell the universe means at this point. I don't know. But nonetheless, it doesn't really matter because you haven't demonstrated anything about your God, let alone that it exists. All you've done is asserted that God is a thing and is the answer, and you haven't given us even a little bit of evidence. And I'll make my joke one last time in hopes that he does do the KCA so I can go completely crazy and then end this stream and then do part 2 later on. If he doesn't do the Kalam, I'll just end the stream. But it'll be funnier if he does.
Tease out even more. We can deduce even more about the being that created the universe. This being would have to be eternal and uncaused because this being brought into existence everything that exists. So it would have to be in itself an uncaused being. This being would have to be out.
Okay. Here's questions about how this works. When you say power, what do you mean? What do you mean power? What does that mean exactly? Okay? Are you talking about energy? What is it you're talking about? And where, if if God simply exists, okay, so I'm going to have God here be this thing, because why not? Yeah, this is God now, whatever. So if this is the only thing that's ever existed forever, and then it says one day, well, I want more than just me, because, I don't know, I'm bored, whatever. How is it doing anything? How is it going, what is it making anything from? Because the only thing that exists is itself. So it would have to take pieces of itself in order to make other stuff, right? Or is it that it has power, and by power we mean magical ability, to just, oh, now it exists. It didn't exist before, but now it does. Why? Because I wanted it to. So it just poofs into existence because I wanted it to. That's what they mean. It's magic. That's all they mean. Whenever they say power, what they really mean is magic. If it's energy, then you're talking about something else. But if all you had is a universe where the only thing is God, and then God has power, whatever that means, where's the power coming from? Also God. Well, how does that work? What fuels God? Because power, you mean like electricity power? You mean like this? Is that power? What do you mean power? Do you mean the ability to do things? Okay, but all that exists is God. So how is God doing things when the only thing that is God? So how does it do anything? There's no answer to that. Now because theology is silent on how God functions as a being. And why? Well, because the Bible doesn't tell you anything, I guess, but also maybe because all of these extrapolations about God come first from the theology. God is eternal. God is this. God is that. So we're just going to take those things and fit them into our narrative, assume that conclusion, and then work backwards. And that's all he's done. He hasn't demonstrated the conclusion is true, nor has he offered any evidence that the thing is a thing in the first place. So, yeah.
Side of space and time, because this being created space and time, because that's what the Big Bang represents, the creation of time, space, matter, energy. This being would have to be immensely powerful and incredibly intelligent to create the complexity that our world represents.
No, it wouldn't. So, tentatively granting all your other assertions, why would it have to be intelligent? Maybe it's stupid. Maybe it's the stupidest thing that ever was or ever will be. And you say, well, what? Well, maybe it was an accident. Maybe God, whatever that is just sitting there. Well, it's not sitting because there is. God's just there. And God's like, and it farts. Oops, I farted. Never did that before. Oh, that's pretty funny. Fart. Fart. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to light some fire. Wait, I'm going to first invent fire because fire is not a thing yet. Fire, fart. There's the universe. Oh, it was a mistake. It was an accident. God didn't mean to do it. God's a complete moron. How do you know that God is intelligent? How do you know that? You don't. This is an assertion. And, by the way, it's interesting, the complexity of the world. Right, yeah. The world, you're talking about our world that doesn't exist back then, the 13 billion years ago when the universe is a tiny dot. Okay, I can draw a tiny dot and I'm not that smart. So maybe God just went, dot. I wonder what happens if I stretch this paper. Oh, look, dot getting bigger. Oh, that's fun. I'm going to keep doing it. Ooh, look at that. Pretty. God could be a moron for all you know. That actually would explain a lot of things. But to invoke the complexity we see today versus the simpleness of the tiny dot that the universe was in back then is just stupid. Okay? So, no, it doesn't have to be intelligent. And again, how do you have intelligence without a brain? Because does God have a brain? Is there a giant brain? Like, then God is like a human? Like, what is God? What is it? How does it work again? You're not going to tell us anything about that. Of course not, because you're not done asserting things and not demonstrating anything yet.
And centuries ago, that's exactly how God revealed himself. The author of the biblical book of Genesis says that Abraham, I quote, called upon the name of the Lord, the eternal God. Centuries later, a man named Moses was commissioned by God to lead the nation of Israel out of the nation of Egypt. And
you know what's sad about that is there's no evidence that that happened at all. Egypt didn't really do slavery. Like, they had a few slaves, but a lot of their slaves were well paid. They weren't slaves at all, I don't think. And the Jewish people, there should be massive evidence that the Exodus took place. None. Zero. Zip. And the number of Jews claimed to be slaves. They didn't have that many Jews back then. The number's off. The number's wrong historically. So that's two. So no evidence, and also counter evidence, and also, by the way, Egyptians didn't really do slaves in that way. So there would have been no one for Moses to lead out of anywhere, and also Moses couldn't have done any of that because why would they let go slaves if they had them, which they didn't? They didn't. The story of Moses is actually a stolen Egyptian story made into a Bible story later. More than likely, historically speaking. Had you actually cared about real evidence, you wouldn't be talking about Moses right now. You'd be showing us the archaeological data that proved that there was an Exodus. You would show us the bones of the Jews. You would show us how many people there were because you would have found the evidence for that. You would show us that Moses actually existed, and you would explain somehow the parallels between the tale, was it the Epic of Gilgamesh, or is that the other parts of the Bible? I can never remember. But all the other stories that are like the stories of Moses, you would explain how those are happenstance or how those came later. And you would do so with demonstrable evidence of all of that. But you haven't done any of the hard work. You haven't done any work at all, Pastor. All you've done is assert. Moses' story is made up. There's no evidence for any of it. If there was, you could present it. But there isn't. So you can't. And you won't. And you won't bother to tell us what evidence there really is of any of this because it looks bad for you. It's really quite telling. One of the, I think it's emotionally magnetic psychopath person seems to that they were a former apologist. I too went that route of I was going to be an apologist. I was going to be the best apologist ever. And then I learned logic. Oops. But apologists do not ever do the hard work of looking up how we know any of this is true. It's not in there. It's not covered. Because it doesn't matter. Because that's not what they're actually selling. They're not selling how to be a skeptic. They're not selling evidence. They're selling this pre-packaged material that's been uttered by hundreds of other apologists in almost the same manner. This speech is almost word for word. I've heard this speech before by other people It's not original. It's nothing new. It's just he got a group of people who thought, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. He doesn't. He's just another pastor pretending to have evidence when he doesn't have evidence at all. Not even a little. You could demonstrate the archaeology of these stories if you had it, but you don't have it, so you don't present it. You don't present what's really there because that's nothing. You got nothing to show. No evidence, even nothing has been shown. Your assertions of Moses are irrelevant.
During the job interview process, Moses asked God a simple question. Moses said this: suppose I go to the Israelites and they say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, oh yeah, well, what's his name? What shall I tell them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. That's
the fuck? I don't care what you think God said to Moses. You haven't demonstrated that God's even a thing yet, or that Moses is a thing that existed at some point. All right. Is this a good place to stop? I mean, it's as good as any other place, I suppose. I've been going an hour plus here, so I want to double check my random thought on Moses, because I don't remember off the top of my head where that story was plagiarized from, but I know it's a thing. Let's see. Yes. Let's see. Moses. Yes. Plagiarized. Oh, I'm doing it now. I shouldn't do it during the live stream. I should stop the live stream and then do my homework. Unlike this guy who didn't do anything at all for us. I actually care about evidence. You know, kind of funny. So the link to the original video is in the description of this. And so please do me a couple of favors. One, type in a comment on this when it's an actual video. Doesn't matter what the comment is, because you doing that simple action and posting it will then, like, YouTube will be like, oh, this person matters, I guess. And like, if you click the thumb up on the thing, that also tells YouTube that I matter, I guess. And then, like, if you subscribe, if you're not, that's cool, and then you hit the bell and do all that. That's all good for me. Then the other favor is to go to the video of this guy and downvote that video, because this guy's full of it. And also, you could share the link to this hangout on that guy's video, so maybe he'll see it. Now, I don't think any of you will do any of that, because I asked you to and you never do it. That's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Don't do it. I don't care. But at least he didn't do the Kalam. Yay! Join me in part 2 when Deconverted Man loses it anyways, even though he didn't do the Kalam. That's what I'm going to call the video. See you then. When am I going to do it? I don't know. Whenever. Why am I going to do it? I don't know. All right. See you next time.